Along with being a doctor, Luke, the author of Acts, was a historian. In essence, he declares as much in his introduction to his account of the gospel. With this in mind, since I myself have carefully investigated everything from the beginning, I too decided to write an orderly account for you, most excellent Theophilus. An orderly account, both in the Gospel of Luke and Acts. Now, some of Luke's sources are obvious, not least of which are his own first-hand accounts. Others are less so. In Acts 23, Luke includes an impressive primary source in the Roman commander Claudius Lysias's letter to the governor Felix. Now, how Luke got access to this letter to be copied and included in his work, we don't know. We do see within the letter some self-serving dishonesty on Lysias's part that seems only appropriate for a man of his position. Now, chapter 24 witnesses to the court trial in Caesarea before the governor Felix. Contemporary historians have pointed to the historical accuracy of such an account, right down to the honorifics and pleasantries offered by the lawyer Tertullus and Paul. Now, the reasoning behind all this goes back in part to Luke chapter 1, verse 4. So that you may know the certainty of things you have been taught. Now, Luke was meticulous in getting the facts right so that Theophilus and subsequent readers such as us could be certain. But not just certain of some disembodied facts. His goal was the salvation and further strengthening of the faith of those who would hear or read his message. Thus, while it's possible to read these passages of court proceedings as strictly historical, even secular accounts, it's also right for us to read them at another level in terms of gospel purposes and fulfillment. Yes, Paul defends himself, saying, I was ceremonially clean when they found me in the temple courts doing this. There was no crowd with me, nor was I involved in any disturbance. That was Paul's truthful and practical defense of his actions. But his opening in verses 14 and 15 are theologically rich and strategically intentional. He says, however, I admit that I worship the God of our ancestors as a follower of the way which they call a sect. I believe everything that is in accordance with the law and that is written in the prophets, and I have the same hope in God as these men themselves have, that there will be a resurrection of both the righteous and the wicked. In his defense, Paul is demonstrating himself and the way to be nothing less than theologically orthodox. We worship the same God, he says. We trust his word revealed in the law and the prophets. Even that on the last day, God will set everything right. I mean, in other words, we are no cult. We are no faction. Who among the Pharisees would not acknowledge these things? Now, it's worth questioning. Of all the things that Luke could have included, why this? Why stress these commonalities? They are accurate, they are truthful, but what does it add to the story he's telling? Around 144 AD, there was a theologian and evangelist by the name of Marcion. Marcion taught that the New Testament depiction of God that had sent Jesus into the world to redeem the world is a different God from the God depicted in the Old Testament. Marcion sought to jettison the Old Testament and ground Christianity solely on New Testament revelation, selected that. Now, following Paul's successful ministry to the Gentiles, along with the rejection of the Messiah by many Jews, it's not unthinkable that this would become a temptation. It seems that one of the things that Luke is doing in recording Paul's speech, beyond giving an accurate account of what transpired, was to ensure that our faith not lose connection to the root from which it grew and which continues to sustain it. In our day, we must be careful to do the same, to seek God not merely in the New Testament witness, but to allow the entire canon of Scripture to nourish, strengthen, and sustain us. That we not be merely a people of parts of the book that we like best, but truly be a people of the whole book. Have a blessed week, church.